Hi, welcome back. Okay, so this is the next lesson on figurative language. The last lesson we talked about literal language and non-literal language. What does it mean? And we defined it. In this lesson, we're going to talk about specific examples of figurative or non-literal language. Just to review, remember that non-literal language means the text does not mean what it says. Sometimes my pronunciation is not correct. Try not to pronounce everything exactly how I do, but do follow the grammar that I teach you. Okay, moving on. So, figurative language. Okay, so we're going to have quite a few lessons about figurative language because there are so many different examples that we can find in reading, in text, and in writing, okay? So, figurative language, and I said, can you see it? I have two eyes here. So why do you think I'm asking you, can you see it? You're like, of course, Bonnie, I can see the text. I don't mean that. What I mean is, when you see a sentence, you want to challenge yourself to see the figurative language, because remember that it's not face value, right? Sometimes we read a sentence and we think, oh, is that saying what it says, or does that mean something else? Does it mean something else other than the literal meaning, right? That's why I ask if you can see it. And remember that figurative language is in everything that we read and write, and in how people talk, okay? So we're going to talk about three different examples. We're going to talk about similes, metaphors. Please read these with me. Similes, metaphors, and personification. But there are more examples, okay? So first, simile. A simile is what? So similes and metaphors, I've grouped them together because they're comparisons. When we use similes or metaphors, we're always comparing two different items, but the way that we do it is different. Similes compare two things using like or as. Very important, okay? Make sure that you write this down. If you see a sentence that it has like or as and it's comparing two different ideas, it's probably using a simile. Okay, simile. Metaphor compares two things by saying something is, let's underline that, okay? Something is something else. Oftentimes, this is what I like to remember, okay? When I see a sentence and I know it's doing some kind of comparison, it has like a noun and then it has an is and then it has another noun. For example, the cloud, here's our rain clouds and it's raining. It's not raining. Is it raining where you are? I hope it's sunny where you are. The cloud is a fluffy pillow. When you see two different nouns, they're being compared, and you see is in the middle, that's usually, it should ring a bell in your mind to be like, oh, wait, that's a metaphor. But if it's using like or as, that's a simile, okay? Let's come back to this example. The cloud is a fluffy pillow. Here's our cloud. What is the sentence saying? Remember that this is figurative language, so it does not mean that the cloud is an actual pillow that you would sleep on. That would be interesting, to sleep on a cloud. It doesn't mean that. It means what? Maybe they're looking at the cloud and they're like, oh wow, it looks like a pillow. They're comparing two things. What are they comparing? Comparing cloud and they're comparing pillow. But they don't use the word like or as. They just use the verb is to say this thing is something else. Okay? The cloud is a fluffy pillow. Remember that they're comparisons. So when you're doing metaphor and simile, you're not going to compare two things that are totally different. Remember that metaphor and simile are comparing things that could be similar, even though they're very different. Cloud and pillow are very different. But a cloud could look like a pillow. Lots of pillowcases are white. Clouds are white-ish. It's the idea, the shape, right? Okay, so that's metaphor, right? Now, simile. Simile compares two things, like or as, is what we're looking for, right? So your smile, let me see it. Your smile is as bright as the sun. So what do we see here? We see as and as. And what do we remember? That similes always use like or as. We don't see like, but we do see as. Is it comparing two things? Smile and sun. Yes. So it means, what does it mean? It means that your smile is so bright, so beautiful. It is as bright as the sun. It is comparing their smile and the sun. We doing okay so far? Simile metaphor. Let's go on to personification. Now, I like to remember what personification means by just looking at the word. Always, always try to use word clues when you're looking at words that you don't know or a different concept. If you can get a root word or some chunk of the word and know what that means, you can probably figure out the rest of it, okay? Personification. I see person. Can you see person? Sorry. Under my arm. Hello. Okay, so what is personification? It is when a word or language gives objects, human or person, human person, characteristics. For example, okay, here we have some stars. They're dancing. Do you like to dance? I love to dance. I'm not a star, but I do love to dance. Okay, the stars danced in the night. Stars are objects, they're things, right? They're inanimate. Inanimate, what does that mean? In means not. Animate means alive or animal-like. Not animal, not alive. So inanimate. So objects. This is an inanimate object. The wall. Stars. They are not people. They're not humans, right? The stars dance. Can stars dance? No, of course not, right? So then you're thinking, well, Bonnie, why would I ever say that then? It's the reason. Okay, write this down. The reason that we want to include figurative language into our writing, or the reason why writers use it in books that we read, is because it makes language more vivid, more, we can imagine, we can see it in our mind better. Can you see stars dancing? Of course, I know you couldn't see them because I drew them, but if I said the stars danced in the night, you can imagine what that would look like, right? You can imagine stars grooving around, right? But if I just said the stars blinked, the stars shone, the stars were very bright at night, it's not quite the same. It doesn't have the same like oomph, the same impact, right? But if we use personification or metaphor or simile, it makes our writing come alive. And it shows that we have more command of the language. And really it makes our writing much more enjoyable to read. And it also makes, when we read books or texts or poems, it makes them much more easier to connect to, which is really what the purpose of language is, right? Is to connect us to connect us to some idea, connect us to another concept, people. That's what it's really about, right? So the stars danced in the night, we know, is an example of personification because stars can't actually dance because they're not humans. However, in English they can dance. We have an exception. So let's go back and review very quickly. Similes are what? Can you give me an example of a simile? Try to think of what could you make for a sentence for simile, okay? And we'll practice this more. Think of your example, write it down, share it with a friend or parent or guardian, okay? A simile compares two things and it uses like or as, okay? Metaphor compares how many things? Same, two things. Doesn't use like or as, so be careful. It just says, this is this. The cloud is a fluffy pillow, okay? Cookies are happiness. Cookies are not happiness, right? I know. Actually, yes, they are. But for metaphors, it's a great metaphor, okay? Personification gives objects or animals human or people-like or people-like characteristics. The stars dance in the night, okay? So these are 3 examples, simile, metaphor, personification, 3 examples of what? Figurative language. If you get confused about what figurative language is, look at the word figure. I know it's missing an E, right? Figure is like image, like photo. So really, figurative language, the reason we're saying figurative language is because you are trying to create an image or a figure in your reader's head. When you're writing with figurative language, you're trying to paint a picture, but with words. Okay? I hope that helps you a little bit, okay? You're doing a great job. Keep it up, okay? Good work.